Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dane and Derek. My name is Derek, and I make movies and play a lot of tabletop games and do a lot of art. Joining me, as always, is my friend Dane.
I am the aforementioned Dane. I write, which is the art of choice for now. Probably it's kind of always been there, so I don't see it going away. Anyways, I'm also a law student, and I still do music and stuff, and I'm still podcasting. Here we are right now doing it. It's just not the. I also love tabletop RPGs. And like tabletop games and video games, food.
We generally like a lot of nerdy shit.
Yeah,
we haven't said the phrase nerdy shit in like a very long time. I think I took that out.
Yeah,
a while ago.
We like nerdy shit. We like non-nerdy shit. We just like stuff.
We like a lot of stuff. Like I was two things. One, the reason why I laughed when I said I do a lot of art is because I was listening to NADPod, not another D&D podcast. And I just got done with the arc where they're like in the town full of like magic addicts who are like doing magic, but it's drugs. And the way that I said it reminded me of how another NPC said it in the game. And I was like, oh yeah, doing art, like doing drugs. And that to me was like the funniest thing, like just consuming art. I don't know. It was funny to me. It's not funny now. I've beaten that to death. And then the other thing is, I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about how like the one way to extend your life and to slow down time psychologically is to constantly be doing new things to confuse your brain. That is a way to make your life feel like it's not blowing past you. So routine is actually bad in that regard.
Yes. Doing new things.
Yeah.
Doing things slow stuff.
Slow stuff.
Just like challenging stuff.
Yeah. I guess that more so than the first comment about doing art ties into today's topic, which is 3 things we wish we knew as artists in high school, which I feel like the phenomenon of lots of kids being super artsy in high school is like it's always been around, but I feel like now it's a lot more widely accepted and a lot more accessible and something that we were at the beginning of.
I would say this. I think that we've talked a little bit about the advent of the idea that your work should be your passion, like you should have your dream job. And I think that kind of exploded the artsy people due to in the same way that I actually think it exploded like scientific people and all of this stuff, because it was less about like school is meant to find me good job and it's not supposed to find me the thing I love to do. And I have feelings about that. I have complicated feelings about that, but I would agree. I would agree that it helped there be a wider group of artistic kids and have it be less stigmatized, all that good stuff.
Because I mean, like out of our friend circle, 3 of us went to art school, and 4 of us.
You went to film school. I went to music school. Our friend Clara went to art school for animation. Maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know. And another one of our friends went to culinary art school. I consider that an art.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. A friend of ours who may be on the show in a future date.
Yes, and we can ask them then about whether or not we can say. Anyways, not important.
Not important.
But
it's important. But yeah, for the sake of the show, 4 of us went to art school out of like the 8 of us in the friend circle, which I think is, I guess, pretty uncommon.
And then a pretty high number of us went to engineering school as well.
Yeah, but also like all of us collectively all practiced an art, whether that's the stuff that like one of our friends does with like making things like physical electronic objects, or like doing like like various like forms of art, whether it be photography or painting or
Cooking or
cooking.
any number
Yeah.
of
Oh,
things.
we had a very artsy friend group growing
Mm-hmm.
up, and we were all helping each other do things, which I think is really great.
Yeah.
Something you don't necessarily like in movies. Kids they never portray that, but um, I don't know. I think we were definitely at the tail end of being able to make a video to get an A on a project. And I say that because by the end of high school, I was getting B's on all my video projects. Um,
Yes. The difficulty of doing such a thing had grown so low as to no longer be impressive that you did it at all.
yeah, and it was definitely an interesting time period, I would say, because high school, like college and middle school, you're undergoing a lot of rapid change and a lot of information, and you're constantly trying new things as an artist, and you're trying to figure out who you are as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really difficult. And art is really difficult at that younger age.
Art is difficult.
Yeah,
Period.
art is difficult to do. Art is still difficult. You know, if not for the 4 episodes we have this week, like in this batch that we've recorded, one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about was just like the suffering through picking your next project, because I am struggling to decide whether to lean into the genre space or to continue leaning into the non-genre space for my next project. And that's been like really difficult as an artist to figure out. And in a lot of ways, I think this episode will hopefully help me illuminate some of these things, because I think thinking back to high school, especially with the art we were making, will be, I don't know, interesting to kind of go back into that boat. Which, I don't know, did you have like a thing you wish you knew right off the bat, or?
Well, okay. This is going to be the episode title is a slight misnomer.
Yeah.
We're going to give you 6 things that we wish, because
Yeah.
we're each doing 3. The first thing for me would be, it's okay to work slower. I didn't take enough time on things.
Oh, yeah.
I was often impatient and constantly wanting to work on the next thing. And I still struggle with that sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
As we record this, I have 2 finished drafts of books that I need to go back and edit, do substantial edits, not as big as I'd feared, but substantial edits. And I am also sitting here being like, well, what am I going to do next? And I also kind of need to be like, calm the fuck down. You're not actually done with the other ones. Like, you didn't finish. Like, and so like, I think that's something I wish I'd learned earlier.
Yeah.
Like thinking back
Definitely.
to some of the, like, particularly around our filmmaking, how fast
Oh my God. Yeah.
we did stuff.
We learned a lot very quick, but
Yeah.
I mean, definitely on the tail end of it, I'm sure you witnessed my ultimate demise of that process, but eventually I developed a sense of what was good and what was just staying on par. And by the very end of like our high school filmmaking career, I was really irritable all the time
Mm-hmm.
because I developed a sense of what I wanted to get better at, which, because we kept working so fast, I never created the space to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes think about, like, once in a while, because on the one hand, I also think maybe you needed to do all of those films to learn a lot of those things. But at the same time, I do sometimes think about, like, well, what if we hadn't done Wedding Crasher in 2 months?
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
Um, like, what if that had been the thing we'd done all year? And
What
I
if that
wonder
had
about
been
that.
what we did instead of Bros of the Realm?
Yeah,
Like that is
absolutely.
a question I think about a lot. Like, and it's something that only in hindsight, after having done a lot of things and having failed a lot, right, can you really think about that. Like, I agree with you with the whole working slower, because I think it lends itself to working smarter,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily harder or faster.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, you learn that not only do you not have that many, it's not that you don't have that many stories to tell, but there's only so much you can make before you start repeating yourself in a negative way, right?
Yeah.
Before you start repeating yourself and you're not necessarily pushing yourself anymore. And, like we had kind of, I mean, like we'd kind of beat the proverbial pinata to a pulp by the time we graduated high school. And so when we came back to try to do similar things in college, a lot of those things kind of fell through because we admittedly were kind of burnt out by it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think something that, yeah, like I definitely agree with you on the whole, like learning to work slow, learning to really sink your teeth into something and to think beyond the surface level of the project. I think is something that took me a really long time to examine. Um,
Yeah.
and because I think it really like, because I think like when that kind of clicked for me, I kind of realized like, oh, I'm making all these fantasy movies with all of these themes, but all these films don't need to be fantasy movies. They can be non-genre films.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened up a whole nother door for me to learn new things that if I had learned that earlier, sooner, I probably could have made better movies earlier, right? Of
Yeah.
course, you know, who's to say, right? But I often think about like, what if Bros of the Realm wasn't Bros of the Realm? What if it was like a Wedding Crasher or like, I think about your show a lot. Nothing left unsaid, unspoken. Um,
Whoa, what show is this?
the one with like the flood and the guy who lost his family.
Oh, yeah.
I think about that a
Yeah.
lot. Like, what if that took the place of Bros of the Realm? How
Oh my God, I hadn't
would
thought about that in a long time.
I
Whoa.
know?
All right, keep
I
going. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think about that a lot. Like, because like that was like a pretty simple project. But imagine if we had taken the time to make like a half-hour film that had a really nice kind of story like that. Like, we probably could have made something that could have played at more festivals or been something that when we look back on we're maybe a little bit more fond of, like
Mm-hmm.
like because like Bros is a fine film, but and it was a cool project to come into film school with. Like a lot of people were really impressed by the sets we built, but that it kind of stops at that. Like outside of that, the film's just okay.
Yeah.
Like not to be a damper on my own work and the hard work we put into it and the money we raised for that film. Like we really gave it our all, but I think there was a lot of room for improvement that could have been learned from maybe taking less of an ambitious approach to it and instead focusing more on the fundamentals of the story. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's something that it would be one thing that I would have wished I'd known is that the fundamentals are always going to matter and they're always going to be the thing you should be focusing on because the genre stuff can come later and can add on to it. It doesn't necessarily need to, like, you don't have to work within such defined boundaries so early on.
No, and I would back you up on your feeling on that one because like you said the fundamentals matter. And my immediate thought was like, yeah, the number of times I had to walk you back from things I knew we were not capable of is very high.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so like I honestly think like I think about that a lot. Like if we had done that, I probably would have like we probably would have been on a different track. Um because like we honestly burnt ourselves out doing all of these fantasy films, all of these action movies, all of these high budget, high production, expensive films that like for me at least eventually financially ruined me, which is I guess another thing that I would talk about to my high school self is like just because you have the money to spend on a movie doesn't mean you should spend it. It
yeah.
doesn't mean like no movie is worth financially like effectively bankrupting yourself over. Um it's really like unless it's going to save a life, there is no reason to spend all your money on a movie. Uh
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
like if,
I
if
hear
you
you
think
there.
like if you get to the point where you think money will fix your art, that is there is something fundamentally wrong with your piece of art.
Yes, there's a difference between knowing what you need to make the piece financially and yeah, you know, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Money will not fix your art.
Money will never fix your art. Yeah. It
Yeah.
it won't it can help make your art better, but it will never fix it.
Yeah.
And that was something I wish I learned earlier on. But at the same time, I kind of had to suffer through a bunch of credit card debt to kind of learn that lesson.
Yeah, I think here, like I some like we were talking about a second ago about like slower fundamentals and all of that, and I'm like, I wish we'd known that, but maybe, and, we're definitely doing some like um hindsight stuff, right? But I also
Yeah,
think about like, yeah, but doing all of those films, that's where some of your fundamentals came from and how
correct.
these lessons were learned, right? Like,
Yes,
um some of this is coulda, shoulda, woulda, but also it's sort of like, yeah, and these are the lessons. Like, this is us just doing like sort of like a wish fulfillment of like, man, I wish we didn't have to do all that stuff to learn this lesson. But here's the thing.
yeah.
Um, all right, so here's my second one. Since you skipped ahead, you
Oh,
skipped
I
ahead of
did. Yeah,
me.
I did.
Um, is no work has to be in air quotes the work.
Ooh,
Um,
that's a great one.
like no piece is the piece to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Because first of all work will eventually fade away. It's about, if you ask me, it's about making a communication in the moment, and that's the best. That's as successful as art is going to be. Um, if it lasts, it lasts, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Odds on we probably don't have the most amazing or popular works from even 500 years ago. Like,
Hmm.
odds on we're probably missing that. Um, and so like trying to make the perfect work is a recipe for not making work at all. And it's a recipe for obsessing about things and um, not not just making your work. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I think back to in high school. Do you remember that film we made? I think it was Watch Me Run or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um, Very silly film. I will also say that from a cinematography and just like fun and snappy film perspective, it was one of the best things we did, and we made it
Yeah.
in an afternoon loosely because we were just like, fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think about that, and I'm like, we got super obsessed with some stuff, like, and just wanting this to be so perfect.
Yeah. I mean, like, Bros, Heroics. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely went down a whole hole with both of those and trying
Yeah.
to make them perfect. Um, to the detriment of the production, I would say. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And also, like, I wish you, like, Bros less so because Bros was its own thing, but like, I do wish in some ways that you'd let go of Heroics earlier.
Me
Um,
too.
and some fun stuff came out of like trying to salvage it, but also like, it's not the thing. You
Yeah.
were always going to go on and make more and good stuff. It wasn't the one idea. It
Yeah.
wasn't, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, this can be my third one or just in general, but I think it's really easy to get attached to the things that people react positively to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with Heroics being sort of the first project that people seemed to like, because like prior to that, I was making a lot of movies that people did not like and that people were like just not thrilled with or like would make fun of me for or make fun of my friends for. And so like having a film that people kind of enjoyed um and had some mild viral success. I mean, it's pretty wild that Heroics is in a book.
Yeah.
But like, I think I just became very attached to like, oh, like I made one good thing.
This is
Like
your thing.
this is the thing I have to do. Like I can't stop making it because once I stop making it, I'll stop making good things. And ultimately you have to be okay with making bad things and learning and trying new things because like some of the greatest filmmakers like M. Night Shyamalan, he makes bad movies and he's fully aware that he's made bad movies. But he's also like, but I also know I can make great movies and I'll bounce back eventually. Um,
It's
like
been a while for him though.
I mean, well, he made that Blumhouse movie that made for like sub $100,000 that made like several million at the box
Which
office.
one was that?
It's like something The House or something. It was like a recent film, but I just
I don't
remember
even
him
know.
talking about like like, yeah, like I was out of the game, so I self-funded a feature and boom, like I'm back in it and I'm doing okay again. And it's like he was just talking about how like you learn from your failure, you try new things and you fail, and that's just a part of the process. That's a part of the learning process, and a part of the artistic process is letting go of things and moving forward, and learning to be okay with failure in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
true.
but also like you also need to take people's reviews of your own projects with a grain of salt. I think you can't take the seventh piece of advice, baby. You got to be able to parse that feedback and take it with a grain of
Mm-hmm.
salt. Like the sooner you learn what's good advice for you versus what's just advice that people are giving because that's their opinion, the easier of a time you're going to have figuring out your work
Yeah.
and figuring out how to improve. And
I remember a time where this was like midway through the season of heroics where
mhm.
you were frustrated with a lot of what like some of the theater people were saying in
Oh
particular.
God.
And I remember,
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was me or was someone, maybe it might have been Taylor who had said this, where basically someone said to you, like, Derek, yeah, like, sure, some of heroics is kind of campy and not great because is what it is. Like, it's not perfect, but also some of what they're saying is that they're jealous because you made a thing and they didn't, right? Like,
Mm.
there was some of that where like sometimes you have to learn when like criticism is not coming from a fair place,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That is
because
a great point. Yeah.
especially, and going back to like high school specifically, sometimes in high school kids are particularly mean and can't separate some stuff and like
Yeah.
will just rag on something because they're the more I'm an adult, like the more I think about that once in a while when I think about that moment, I'm like, yeah, I bet there were more than a handful of people who were like seriously just pissed because either they turned you down and like even if it wasn't like the coolest thing ever, like they missed out on a fun thing, you
Yeah.
know? Um
Yeah.
and that something got made and that them and their friends talked about big game and nothing came of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um you know,
Yeah.
something's better than nothing, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Which it goes back to it goes back to a lot of what we're talking about today, which is like sometimes it is just okay to kind of like you have to find that balance between working fast and working slow, working smart and working hard, taking in criticism and letting go of people's opinions, as well
mhm.
as understanding that, and also like when to let go of your projects and when to fail, when to try something and accept failure.
Yeah.
um yeah.
So here's my third one.
Hmm.
Um, this is kind of building off this, which is make the work for you.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
Both in terms of fun and meaning. And so, like for example, right now I'm trying to figure out the next novel I want to write. As much as I really need to go back and do the do the editing I'm talking about, is like, what do I actually want to write? What do I want to do? Is important in terms of like doing meaningful work. Um, but more recently, I've also learned like it's okay to just do something dumb and silly for yourself.
Hmm.
I have a friend, or that isn't like beyond for you. Like Gracie and I are currently sharing a poetry project that we've been sharing for a year, and that is just for us. Like
Hmm.
that's okay. I have another friend where she and I write the just like we write the most self-indulgent, like just dumb shit. Um, and I love doing it, and it makes me love writing more. Um, but that's all it's for. Is it's just for my own fun. Um, and so then it's like I never would have considered that in high school to write a song just for me that was just silly and dumb and whatever. And this kind of gets back to the work being the work. It's like I wouldn't have because that's not important enough, right?
Yeah.
Or and also like what you're talking about with like the feedback and the virality and all of this and trying to find the thing that other people respond to, like chasing that. Like I was constantly like being like, well, people like this. I want you to like and so like when I made work that was meaningful, it was sort of for someone else. And it was also not always from a place of like enjoyment, right? Like there's that old
Hmm.
adage of like write the story you want to read, you
Yeah.
know. It's like that. And sometimes that means what I want right now is to just write poems for and with my partner. Or other times it's like the story I want to read is a little weird and that's okay, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that, in some ways, the sooner you learn that creating from a place of for yourself, the sooner you realize that it's just as meaningful to someone else.
Yeah, yeah, it's that thing where you eventually like you learn that like if I just write this not fully for me, like you keep your audience in mind, blah blah blah, whatever.
Right.
But like if I'm writing the story I want to read, I am not so special and unique that
Yeah.
there's nobody else who's going to have find something. And if you it's the whole thing of like you get specific enough about something that suddenly it becomes universal again. It's that it's the
Yeah.
and it's also the thing of like for fuck's sake, if you're not doing it because you want to do it, then it's going to probably end up being bad work. And so
Yep.
sometimes it's totally fine to just make something purely because you're like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's
my
hard.
it is like for example, my friend just recently he wrote a short story that's a fan fiction of Gracie's novel. Um,
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah, yeah, and like I was like, and he's like, I just wanted to do it, and I was like, yes. And you know what? His little short story, it's pretty fucking good. The fan fiction, like Gracie loves it. She thinks it's awesome, and I was like,
Yeah.
right, because he was just doing it. So there's something like there's like a spark there, you know.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, I wish I had known that. I really do. I do wish that I know I'm leaning a little more on like knowing that the work can be fun more than like the other thing, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, something I think about a lot is like it's like, like you have to have some kind of an emotional investment into it, right? And
Hmm.
you can usually tell when you're making something that you don't care about.
Yeah.
And that's the worst kind of art sometimes. Like,
Hmm.
you know, we've had the privilege of making a lot of movies. Like I think before you and I graduated high school, we had made something like I don't
30.
know, like closer to like 70, upwards of 100. Like I personally had made upwards of 100 shorts by the time we graduated,
Mm.
and you had been involved on like at least 50 or 60 of those. Like,
Yeah, no,
and
that's
not
true.
all of them were good, not all of them were great. Some of them we were just making to try and get better at.
Hmm.
Um, and then in college, I was like, well, that's how I got better in high school. So let me do another like 100. And I did that. And I made a lot of art that I don't like talking about anymore. Um, there's even fewer things from college that I really enjoy. And I think a lot about how when I graduated, I had to really push myself to just even make something remotely that I was interested in, just to kind of get a little bit of that spark back. And you know taking that t- taking s- you know take taking art taking time to make art for yourself is really important. um I always keep like a what I call like a blow off steam script lying around, which is usually a script with a really dumb idea that I really enjoy writing, that I'll go back to when I need to like take a break from the stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
That probably will never see the light of day, but is just for me. And yeah, I think, yeah. Wow, this is like a half sad, half, I don't know, like a weird emotional kind of trip down memory lane.
Yeah, because it's kind of like we often talk about the rosy parts of these things, right?
Yeah,
But like heroics was this joyful thing and also so much stress, especially for
yeah,
you. And
yeah. I mean, like,
we are talking right now about like, man, I wish this. It's the admitted we're just like pointing out like, yeah, that was a mistake. Like,
yeah,
like those sorts of things. And
yeah,
like I guess just to add a bonus fourth, um, I think something I really do wish I'd known in high school that's kind of adjacent to making art as well is just it's okay that it sucks. Like
yeah.
the art itself, the time that you're living through, like it's not a perfect time. And also you're so much at the beginning
Yeah,
of stuff,
yeah.
just life in general, right? Like,
You're at the
and
beginning and you're going to do another one.
yeah, and it's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay. Like, make the bad movie,
yeah.
write a bad book, like paint poorly. It's all fine. It's all good. It's all great.
It's all going to become work that eventually will live on a hard drive. And eventually, when you're cleaning up your files, you'll stumble across it and you'll feel something because you remember those early days and it'll be nice.
Yeah.
It's all work that, like there's no such thing as an overnight success because, an overnight success 10 years in the making, right? All that bad
Yeah.
work contributes to that. And
And also, I wish I'd known at that age that success in art could look a lot of ways and
oh my God, yes.
that I
Oh
could
my
strive
God.
for various things. Like I wish I'd
Yes.
known I could strive to be a published author or whatnot, and also be a person who has a job. Also,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that. I wish
Yeah.
I'd known that success just looks at like so many different things.
Yeah.
Um,
That there's different forms of success and it's okay to have a different opinion, an idea of what success looks like for you.
mhm.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like, I think your idea of success is very different than my idea of success. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Like, we can still collaborate and make art together, but that's because we both know what we're striving for and we can come to an agreement on what success looks like. Like, for instance, on this podcast, success looks like us catching up and having a good time and talking about things we already talk about.
yeah.
That is such an easy bar to meet. Success for this show does not look like, having a set
ten
and
thousand downloads a
10,000
week.
downloads
Yeah.
and, a Patreon. The success does not look like that for this show.
Mm-mm.
Success looks like you and I talking
Yeah,
every
and that
week.
success can change. Like you said, you're talking about success changes from project to project,
Yeah.
right? Like, I have a project coming up that I'm literally kind of staring at right now, which is um, writing and curating my past grandfather's work and writing in almost in response to him. Success with
Mm,
that is going the bar for success is doing that.
yeah.
It does not any further is I don't know what, but that's not the bar for success of of one of my novels. I would really like to see that published,
Yeah.
and that's something I'd like. Um, and so that is different. And so just knowing all of that would have been spectacular,
Yeah.
because all success looked like to me was virality and money and right. Um, and that sucks. You know, it sucks that that was like the only path presented. It's not that that's a bad path, just, you know.
Yeah. It's complicated. There's so many different paths that knowing that there's a wide spectrum of these things and that you don't have to do necessarily what everybody else is doing is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I think something that we've both probably fallen prey to is letting other people's opinions of who we should be as an artist influence the art we make.
Yeah.
You know, on top of that, like to add on to that success piece of advice, like only you can truly know what kind of an artist you are. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of space, and a lot of the things that we've been discussing this whole episode play into figuring out who you are as an artist. And a lot of people are going to have opinions on what you should be doing as an artist. But it's not necessarily what you should be following. And that's really difficult to kind of parse and to kind of think through.
It is. It is.
But ultimately, in some ways, I think we wish we cared a little less, worked a little less, and enjoyed the process back then a little bit more. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I think it sounds like that's in general. Like if you want to boil down our like 10 things into 3 things, it's that we took it a little less seriously, worked a little less, like worked had a little
Less
bit of a lesson.
manically.
Yeah, worked a little less manically, and just enjoyed the slowness of being a teenager with the privilege of making art at such a young age.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't know. One of these days, I'll crack out all this old footage I have of us, like of the behind the scenes stuff.
Huh.
'Cause I still have like a lot of that stuff.
Damn.
Um,
You let me know if you do. But
yeah, it'd be funny.
mm-hmm. The amount of you and I recorded in any way is so high. There's so
oh my
many
God,
hours.
Yeah,
And we're,
so
we're
many
adding
hours.
to it this very second.
Yeah. Every minute we continue to ramble and record this episode, we are adding to the volume of media that you and I exist in.
Yeah. It's
Um,
it's hilarious.
yeah, and it's funny too because like you and I we've often talked about the creative partnership that you and I have had. And like how awesome we've felt to have had it and how we're very glad we can still have it in this form now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I think we are very, very lucky to have and to be able to continue and to still collaborate even though we're operating in different fields,
Yeah.
to still help each other in that way. Yeah, I don't know.
This was a ponderous episode.
Yes, we haven't. I feel like every episode gets ponderous, but we haven't pondered this much in a while.
Yeah, this is particularly ponderous. Also, this batch recorded started with us being hyped about the Dungeons and Dragons trailer.
Movie,
So
yeah.
so I feel like it feels extra ponderous because we came from that and are down here now and we're like, yes.
The meaning of life.
The mists of the past.
The mist of the past. Wow. What a good expression, the haze as you wander through your memories.
I think I stole that from Lord of the Rings. Anyways.
Oh, there you go. Tolkien, our hero.
Yeah.
Well, folks, yeah, I feel like this is as good a place as any to end it.
We could meander for 2 more hours here.
We could.
I don't know what to say. Like we could.
We could keep meandering, but it's one of those things where
I need to eat.
You need to eat.
I don't know what to say. We got to end the episode. I don't have a better ending. I don't.
Yeah, there's no good way to end this, and we'll probably come back to it because this is definitely something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because of just the kinds of movies I'm making now and the kind of period of reflection I'm in. And yeah, but we're always in this kind of mood. So we always think about art.
Absolutely.
Because we
But
just love it.
yeah, absolutely.
We love art.
That is something I would not want to change.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
in high school.
Yeah. Well, folks, you can follow the show everywhere at Dane and Derek. You can tweet at us. You can Insta at us. And you can see what movies I'm watching on letterbox.com/Benig-Aiello. There are links to my work there.
You can find my work at danewrites.com. There's a link to Substack where I post small writings I do. Someday I would love for there to be a link to where you could find my book. That would be cool. But we'll get there someday.
We're manifesting that.
Manifesting, generating energy.
Yep.
Anyways, there are also links to music I've done, podcasts I've done, as well as probably a link to my Instagram. Yeah. I'm gonna go eat.
Have fun eating. I'm gonna go drink another cup of coffee, and it's sunny today. Probably gonna go walk outside.
It's a good plan.
Yeah.
We're still meandering. We'll have to let people go. We're gonna have to let ourselves go.
We're just gonna get played out by the music that you wrote back in high school.
Yeah, no, I know that. That's the vibe. I can hear it now.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. I can hear those guitar strings that I played ages ago. Ages.